What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Player One versus the World for another special Metal Gear Solid interview. I have the absolute privilege of welcoming on Piers Stubbs, the White Mamba, Eli in Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Piers, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Absolutely brilliant. Huge Metal Gear fan. Love the opportunity to talk to you. Also a fellow Brit as well. So it's big thumbs up for me. But I know that you're in LA and I'm based in the UK at the minute. So big time zone difference. But I'm very glad to have you here. And obviously so much to talk about with Metal Gear. But before we get onto Metal Gear, I obviously learned a bit more about your story of getting into acting. But I kind of wanted to get a gauge for people who are watching this. How did you get into acting? Because I thought it's quite a fascinating story.
Yeah, so I originally grew up in the country outside of London, and then I went to London when I was 8. I originally wanted to be a singer, and then so I got into this performing arts school, and then I started getting. If you can get into the school, you get with the agency that they have within the school as well. So they start sending you out on jobs. So there were singing jobs, acting jobs, all sorts of stuff like that. So I started to get work in the West End through my singing, and then it involved acting as well. So then I started to do Shakespeare, things like that. And then I eventually just found my love for acting. That eventually just took center stage rather than the singing. So then I just continued doing West End and then branched out into film and TV after that.
No, that's absolutely fascinating. And kind of want to take you into the perspective of when you decided to go into acting. What was the mindset going through there? Was there kind of like a really big nerves of kind of like just going into the career of acting? Because I know it's so hard because rejection is such a big thing that I talk with a lot of actors. But like when you're going into it, like go back to that moment when you decided to go into it, was there fear or excitement? Kind of like what were you kind of like getting prepared to go into this? And what were the kind of main things that you were looking at?
You know, what's funny is it really wasn't, it happened very much by accident. I was doing jobs in the West End, doing Shakespeare. I did, and then it was one day I was doing Les Miserables, and I was about to go on, and I don't know, maybe it's just something to do with the power of that show. It's just got such a sort of dynamic quality. So it just something about that. That was when I sort of felt, yeah, I want to really make acting something that was. If I can do that, then I'll be really happy. I would really start to get interested in acting from that point on. But, it wasn't, the fear of it never really took. I was so sort of immersed in that whole thing of like the West End at that time. That's where I started. And it just happened. I mean, the only fear I ever had was when I was going on stage. That was terrifying. And I never went away. You'd hope that it would do after many, many years, but it never goes away. So everything that you can imagine would go wrong on stage went wrong, as it always does, live theatre. But the fear of the acting thing, I was just so immersed in it. It just happened, and so I never really had a chance to like look at it and say, "Hang on, I was just already doing it before I even knew that I wanted to do it," kind of thing. So it just kind of happened like that.
Oh no, I can imagine so, and especially with Les Miserables as well, you're not going to be able to, there's so much a high expectation on there. I can understand that there might be a little bit of fear in there. But obviously, before we get into Metal Gear, you have that background in theatre, you have a background in TV, you did VO work in 10,000 BC, you have that kind of experience. And then before you kind of got onto this project, was there kind of like that really, going to the VO booth before having done voiceover, how beneficial was that moving into this project with Metal Gear Solid 5? And then even though it is in a different realm of gaming?
Yeah, it was really helpful. Because I did Einstein's, the animated series. I did that for 2 years with Disney. So that really helped me with the idea of going in the booth. You're not always with the other actors when you're doing the work. So it's usually just you on your own. So it's a very different experience to being on stage or being on film TV on camera. So it is a very different thing. And that really did help prepare me. But yeah, and then when this game came up, I didn't even know that I didn't know what the game was because they didn't tell me anything. Because it's all shrouded in secrecy. So I think it was, the description was video game, young soldier, British, may use violent language. And that was it. That was the description I had to go on at the beginning. So, but then once I got into it, then they started to tell me a bit more. But so yeah, it just happened again. I was doing it before I even knew really what I got myself into. But it was very exciting.
Of course, and we'll dig into a bit more of that in a moment, but I kind of wanted to take you to the fact that obviously September, we were recording this in October, but September marked the 6-year anniversary release of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. You'd worked on this project for 6 years, even longer, assuming when you got casted for it. What's the immediate feeling like when I bring up MGS5, Eli, what's going through your mind now?
Yeah, it's just, I remember being shocked because, I mean, we did it probably about 18 months before it came out, but I remember a couple of things got leaked online. And what was funny was a couple of my mates phoned me up and said, are you in this sort of hype? And I was like, how did you even know it? No one even knows. And I haven't even told my deepest, most personal friends. And, it's like, and they knew. So, yeah, it was, I remember the whole thing being very sort of surreal because I've never had to keep anything that secret for that amount of time because, you know, it takes so long because they have to do all the visual effects and the facial capture, motion capture work. So it takes a long time between when you do it when it comes out. So I remember just sort of itching for it to come out. So, you know, get to experience what I got to experience, like making it, and I got to see little bits of it as we were making it. So that was really fun as well. Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely, and I can imagine. So I remember seeing some of the leaks as well, and then people like Piers Stubbs, English actor, Eli, Liquid Snake, and they were kind of like sussing it out a little bit. So I can imagine that you're, you know, hiding that from your friends and other people must have been really hard. But, you know, you kind of touched on it in before, but I kind of want like, you know, let's go to the audition process. What was that like? Do you remember it? And was this something you self-submitted for, or was it through an agency or your agent?
Yeah, no, it was through my representation, and they said, like I said, it was that very brief description. So all I knew it was a video game, and that there would be facial capture work in it, and yeah, there was like a one sentence description of it, and very very vague. I went in, and there was a few auditions to, I think maybe 2 or 3, something like that. Working with the voice director, trying out different things. And then, yeah, as we got to the later stages in that process, they then told me more about the character than I knew what it was going to be at the very last stage.
No, that would make sense. And I've kind of like thought about that in the sense that obviously you've kind of mentioned this project was NDA'd, and I imagine so as well because it's a Metal Gear. But did you kind of suss out this was Metal Gear Solid by just that, even that brief spec before they told you it was the Phantom Pain, before it was Metal Gear Solid? Did you have any inkling that it was linked to this series?
No, because they were so brilliant with their description. It was so vague, it could have been anything. I mean, seriously, it could have been anything. I had all sorts of things going through my brain thinking what it could be. But yeah, on the very last stage when they did actually tell me, but before I went in for that last audition, yeah, I started to think, it was one of the 2 things I was thinking. I knew that there was something else going on at the time, so that was sort of taking my attention at that. And actually, yeah, one of my friends said, oh, they're doing a new Metal Gear Solid thing coming out. So then I thought, okay, oh God, no, maybe it's that. And then they told me it was that, so yeah.
No, that's really cool. I've had some actors kind of like suss out from the scripts that they get, where they figure out it's the game series that they're working on. But with how brief the description was that we're giving you for Metal Gear Solid, it would make sense that you didn't know all of it. So with that as well, you know, we get Eli. What were your first impressions of that character when they showed you what he looked like? And obviously, I know that you did facial and body capture for him. We'll come on to that. But like, what was your first impressions when you saw Eli?
Yeah, I didn't see what he looked like until very late into. I was already working on it. I did it. I worked on it periodically for about 6 months. I'd go and do like a week, and then come back a few months later and do another week. So it was only at the very end that I then saw what the character would look like. Before then, it was just the voice director really just talked to me about what we wanted to do with the character. What it was, you know, we get to see the young version of this character, see how he becomes, what he becomes, and just very basic things, you know, feeling inferior, feeling of that real deep hatred that he has, that real anger, kind of arrogance, that kind of stuff. So it was really just working on that and finding the right tone for what we wanted to be, because they knew they wanted to make this a darker video game. This one, they wanted to make it a darker story. So we really wanted to make sure that it kind of aligned and made it so it worked within what they wanted to get with the story. So it was more about that. The sketch I saw at the very end, when they showed me a little snippet of the video game,
I can imagine that was a very exciting time. And, you know, like I said, it was a VO body facial capture. Was this separate that you did? So you did the body facial capture first, then the VO, or how did that kind of process go?
No, it was all together. Yeah, I stand up and then they put all these dots on your face. And then it just, and you go into a booth and you spend about a week just shouting, screaming, fighting, all sorts of things, basically in a booth all on your own. With people behind a screen just looking at you as you're doing it. And it's a very strange experience, but it was about a week of that. And then at the end, you can't talk for 2 days because your voice is gone.
That would be exactly what I'd expect. And, you know, obviously they borrowed your likeness with the facial capture, but were you surprised how much he looked like you? Because I've seen a younger headshot of you, and then put it next to Eli, and I was like, oh, right. I was like, this really does stand out for me a little bit.
Yeah, I was surprised. I'm amazed by what those people can do. I mean, they're geniuses. What they can do, the way they make the thing look. I mean, it looks like a film. It's so kind of, it's gorgeous to look at. This the landscapes that they choose and everything they do. So they're real artists. So, but yeah, it's always surreal when they see what the mock-up of it's going to look like. And but no, it was cool. I liked the look. I thought it was cool when they eventually showed it to me at the very end.
Exactly, and we've spoiled the hell out of this game anyway. So if anyone gets angry at the fact that we mentioned this Liquid Snake anyway, I'd be surprised. But I'm kind of coming on to Liquid Snake in terms of this is a legendary character, especially in the MGS franchise, and for me, even more so in gaming as well. For a villain, it's so iconic. And obviously, you didn't know anything about it, but when you found out that Eli was Liquid Snake, it's all come out and everything else. Were you really a little bit daunted by how fans would receive this character? Was there something going through your heart, like a sinking feeling like, oh, I'm playing the character that comes before Liquid Snake? Was there something that went through your mind at that point?
Yes, you get all the excitement and then comes all the daunting kind of pressure. So it's very quickly turns, but you have to shut that off and you have to just get on with the job. You have to treat it like any other job, the way you do any other job, and just focus on the work. And that's the only way to get through it. Otherwise, it's just, you'll turn yourself inside out, trying to think, how can I do it? You start second guessing yourself. You can't go down that road. So you have to immediately forget all of that other stuff and just treat it like anything else.
Were you you must have been thrilled by the reaction that people gave this character? Because I love Eli. I thought he was like you said, the anger, the resentment, everything about him. It embodies Liquid Snake so much. But were you really happy with how fans just took to the character? And it's yeah, this is the White Mamba. He's cool. He's just so badass. Everything about him.
Yeah, it was really, really lovely because it was such a long time, and so I was really excited to see how fans would react to it. Mm-hmm. And especially, my mates, when they phoned up and they were already playing the game when it came out. They actually played it before me because I was working on a job, so I didn't have time when it came out. So they got to play it before me, which was infuriating. But yeah, so they were playing and they loved it. It's so cool, and it's always lovely.
Absolutely. And we have the benefit of hindsight right now. And you kind of mentioned it's only a spec. They gave you very little bit on it. But in perspective, would you prefer they have told you this was Metal Gear Solid, that this was the precursor to Liquid Snake, that you had some kind of idea to research the character, look at the history of the game? Or do you prefer that you went in with very little expectation in terms of who the character is, nothing about him, and then kind of put your own performance in him? Was that something that you prefer, or did you wish that maybe they'd give you a bit more information?
It's funny, it frees you up not knowing, and you can just kind of have a really fresh take, and you don't have anything kind of distracting you in your mind about previous iterations of it or things like that. But then it was helpful when I then saw the full script and saw everything else, then I could go further into it, and then you can start to then it relaxes you, and then you can go into all the research, because then it just sort of sits in the back of your mind, and it's just, and you can let it do its work. But at the beginning, it was actually lovely because you're just free of it, and you have kind of a free attitude, which is always useful.
Absolutely. And were you familiar with the series before this, or did you explore it after the game? Where did you sit with Metal Gear Solid?
Yeah, so I hadn't played it, but I was very familiar with it. Like I said, a couple of my friends are big fans. So I knew of it very much. So yeah, it was very exciting when I got the job and when I started working on it, and it was a very, very cool experience. I probably would have told them I was auditioning for it if I known it was Metal Gear Solid at the time. But no, it was definitely wonderful to work on.
Absolutely. And we mentioned it before, the VO director, which I'm obviously assuming is Kris Zimmerman, based on the research I've done and her history with the franchise. She's your main source of contact with this. You've worked with a lot of VO directors, but what was your experience working with the veteran of the MGS series of VO directing and going into the booth to bring this character to life?
Oh, everything you'd expect. She was just brilliant. She was absolutely fantastic. She had such a clear take on what she wanted it to be. And we both had a very clear take on what we wanted, how we wanted it to look and sound. Certain things with the voice that she wanted, which were really helpful for me. Certain things with the accent, she wanted little subtleties that she wanted. So yeah, it was she, as you can imagine, she was just fantastic.
Absolutely, and you kind of just touched on what I was going to say, because like the accent thing I was going to bring up, because obviously born outside of London, I'm based in Manchester, and based on your accent, it would be quite strong down from the south, and she asked you to tweak it at certain points. Was there kind of like a consistency she wanted with that tweaking, or was it like you just changed it at different points?
She wanted, well, first of all, I needed to sort of go in a little bit of a higher register. I was playing younger, but then with the accent, they decided, because they wanted to be really tough, they felt that a little bit more of a Cockney accent would be more what they were doing, and I got more of like a standard London accent, Southwest London accent. So they wanted it to be a little more rough, a bit more Cockney, a bit tougher. So we didn't go full on Cockney, but we went a little bit just to toughen them up a bit.
And like you said as well, like your voice must have been pretty hard coming out the booth after those sessions. How many takes did you used to do for like because obviously he's yelling, he's like screaming, like was it?
Oh my God, it was endless. It was endless. It never stopped. It was 6-hour days, sometimes 10-hour days, and it never ever ended. But because they have to do so many different options for all the different ways that you may play the game, so you have to make sure you've got everything covered, obviously. So there's a lot of variations you have to give. But no, it was fun, because you know that in the end it's going to be worth it. It's going to show up on screen and it's going to be great.
Oh, absolutely. And your time with Kris Zimmerman in the booth, how many booth sessions did you do off the top of your head? Was it over a period of months, or was it like you did it quite fast?
Yeah, it was about you go in for about a week at a time, and then you go back a few months later and do another week. They kind of do it in stages like that, and so it was probably over the course of about 6 to 8 months, and I'd go in a week at a time, and maybe did that 3 or 4 times. Yeah, makes sense.
And whilst we're in the booth as well, I'd be pretty bad not to mention, obviously, the series' legendary creator, Hideo Kojima. Obviously, I know he's based in Japan, but I was wondering, was he ever there for any sessions that you did in terms of like over a Skype call in person? Did you meet him?
I did. He came in for one of the sessions at the beginning, which was very cool. That was very, very cool. That was. I got to talk to him a little bit afterwards, and that was exciting, just to get his insight into what he wanted for the game. And he's a genius. He's brilliant.
Oh, he's an absolute genius. And did he provide you with any personal feedback? I know that Zimmerman's the lead voiceover director. She'll be kind of your main source contact. But did Kojima give you any constructive feedback on the performance, or something he wanted changing specifically?
No, it's funny. He was very hands off. He really just I think he just came and he just wanted to see how everything was going. But I think he left it up to Kris Zimmerman to handle that. He just wants to come and I think he just came in and just said hi and just wanted to just kind of see how everything was going, really. He was surprisingly hands off with it.
I'm surprised with that. I thought maybe he would have had a bit more control over something like that, because I know he's so heavy involved in the actual game development of things, but didn't realize about that. And I'm very envious of you, and I imagine your friends are absolutely even more envious that you got to meet Kojima. But with that, I kind of wanted to ask you, what was, the game's out. Are there any personal favorite moments from MGS5 that you like, especially with Eli, or any general scenes that you've played through or watched? Anything that comes to mind?
I liked the scene where I had to learn Kikongo. That was cool. I didn't know I was going to have to do that until the day. Again, they never told me anything. So I went in all the day, did it, and in my lunch break, they had this lovely man came in and taught me Kikongo. He taught me everything I would need to say for that scene and more, because I wanted to learn as much as I could in that hour. I did it, and then of course at the end of the day, I completely forgot everything I'd ever learned from him. but it was, but no. So that was a cool moment.
That's really cool. Was it difficult?
He was very good at teaching me, and I was really enthusiastic. I wanted to not just learn the lines, I wanted to learn everything I possibly could in that hour. No, I don't. I remember being quite excited about it. I liked it. It was fun.
And with the game as well, in those scenes as well, like, we were talking about Eli, the young child soldier. He has his own little militia crew that he has with him. You must have thought that was a really cool moment, especially when he makes his introduction. He's sitting on that chair, and we even see it in the trailer. Like, when you saw that, you must have been like, wow, I'm playing a really, really badass character.
Yeah, that was one of the first things that we did. I think I was actually on the first day with that scene. So that was cool. I thought it was a very cool entrance to the character. That was really cool. They gave me some hints about what he was going to wear and everything. And I thought, this is going to work. I think this will do well.
Oh, absolutely. And the funny part is I didn't even get that scene because I ran in there like an idiot. Because I think if you like go in there with the alert signs as well, he just starts fighting you straight away, Eli. You don't get the cutscene.
Yeah.
Which was what happened to me. And I was like, how have I messed this up? But I'm going to be very, very, very restrictive on this question for you. Like, what is your favorite thing about Eli? When I talk about that character, what's that one thing that you admire most about that character that you did?
That's a tricky thing. I think the fact that I like the fact that he was complex. I like that. That he's not just, he's a multi-layered character. It's more real. You can understand why he has the feelings of anger, hatred, and he had a very specific goal to achieve. And that for me was really helpful when playing it. So I remember thinking, I found it quite easy because it was structured so well, and I knew exactly what they wanted from it. And so that really helped me when I was portraying that. I think that was, sometimes it's not easy, things are a little bit more vague. This was very, very structured and very clear on what they wanted. So that's always just a great place to start from.
Absolutely. And this is going to be a bit more harder as well. Say, if you had the chance to add something to Eli, would you change anything? Would you add anything? Would you want like maybe a bit more time with Venom Snake and Liquid Snake's relationship being developed more? Is there anything that you would personally change if I gave you the opportunity right now?
Would I change anything? I would... Listen, the fight sequences were always fun. They were the most exhausting because they never ended, but they were really, really fun. So, any chance to do more fight sequences would be cool. But no, I was happy with how it ended up.
And like as I said, like for me, like to try and change anything from Kojima, my perspective is really hard. But do you like with the fight sequences and the sounds, the noises and stuff? Did you have like any previous experience in any roles for this, or was this the first time you were kind of like tapping into that side of VO work?
In voiceover, that was my first time. I did fight sequences in like film, TV, and in the theatre, and I did like stage combat training and stuff like that. So that actually helped quite a lot. But for voiceover, no. But it was quite an easy transition because of what I'd done in the theatre with that.
Perfect. And I have to kind of bring this up as well. So with MGS5, there was a big portion of the game that was cut, which was episode 51, Kingdom of the Flies. Your character was at such a central role of it. It's when Eli takes Sahelanthropus, flies off to the island with the other child soldiers, gets taken away. That footage was obviously released online with the Blu-ray footage. Fans saw it. There was cut scenes that you recorded. Were you surprised to see that scene cut from the game afterwards? Like, I imagine you sat down and watched all of it through the game at some point.
Yeah, there's always going to be something that's cut. You always record or shoot more footage than you're going to need because it just gives them all the options that at the end something's going to end up on the cutting room floor. So it just had to be something that's got to give. They can't make the game excessively long, and for story reasons they have to make certain cuts. But it's nice that it's online, so at least you can get to see it that way. Yeah, in the end.
Absolutely. And just out of curiosity, do you remember at what point you might have recorded lines for that? The episode 51, was it at like a later stage, or was it just during all the other VO sessions? It was
all kind of immersed. I have no idea. I can't remember if that was. I think that must have been somewhere in the middle somewhere. It wasn't particularly. I don't think at the time they had plans to cut it out. We had a certain number of scenes that we had all written out, and so they wanted to just get through them, from the beginning to end. So no, it must be somewhere in the middle, I think.
Okay, that would make sense. And we're talking about 6 years have passed. You said that your friends had the chance to play it before you did. You must have had time to sit down and play through the entire game. What was your experience like when you were playing it? Like MGS, what was going through your mind playing this game?
Two things. First of all, it's very cool to play the game. I love the game. It was really cool. I love the landscape, how it looked. It's really, really cool. But the other bit is very weird when you're playing a character. It's like listening to yourself on a voice message. It's like, is that really what I sound like? It's a very strange thing. So it's kind of, you have kind of had this objectivity about it when you're playing it, but you can't fully be immersed in it because it's you. And so it's kind of both things.
Absolutely. And, with the themes in the game, we have child soldiers, you have the kind of like entire theme about voice and language. What were your reactions like to seeing this game? Were you familiar with, obviously we kind of mentioned it, but were you like really familiar with how much Kojima goes into these games, especially like Metal Gear Solid 2, so heavier handed with the themes? What were you kind of like thoughts of seeing all these themes being incorporated into the game?
Yeah, it was cool. It was actually one of the things that I was really excited about when I took on the job. It was, first of all, Kiefer Sutherland was going to be in it. that was a huge draw for me to get to be in something with him. And then, and I did know that, Kojima was, very hands-on with the development of the game and everything. And again, like I said, I knew from the beginning they wanted to make it a darker story. They wanted to make it much more darker. And that for me was really exciting because, I was playing a villain and you get to really play that. You get to really play that up a lot. So that was fun. But it was, it was lovely to get to do that.
Absolutely. And I kind of have to ask you as well, because your character is so central to Metal Gear Sahelanthropus, the giant mech. What were your thoughts of that design? Because obviously, like, Metal Gear is so iconic for its different designs of Metal Gear Rex, Ray, Sahelanthropus. What did you think of the mech that they put in that game?
That was one of the things I got to see when I was making it, one of the few bits they showed me. So that was very cool. That was, I was very excited to see that. All of it's amazing. You see the African landscape that they have in it, everything. It's just, it's gorgeous looking, the whole thing of it, and it's brilliantly done.
Absolutely, and I can't believe I must have been so itching in that booth to kind of get one thing after another from them to keep drip feeding you content from the game. And before we kind of wrap up with MGS5, I kind of wanted to talk to you about, you got nominated for a award with the facial body capture that you did for this. Facial and body capture. Yeah. What was your reaction like when you got that? Because obviously I know that people who come into the gaming world and have these kind of opportunities aren't really familiar with how far video games have come. You obviously saw that with like having Kiefer Sutherland in this. Kojima's now had like Norman Reedus in Death Stranding. But like, what was the feeling like when you got nominated for this role, specifically in a video game, and then there was an award at the end of it as well that you got nominated for?
Very surprising. It was really surprising. It was lovely. It's like when the game comes out and other people get to play it. You make these things for the audience. You want people to see it and play it and get to experience everything that you've been working so hard on. It was very, very surprising. I wasn't something I was expecting. Somebody got told about it. I didn't even know about it, and then they told me, and it was lovely. It's just, it makes it really that much more worthwhile for all the hard work you put into it, and it's got that well received. It's always lovely.
Absolutely. And we're coming towards the end, but I kind of wanted to ask you, what's the future for you like in acting? Like, obviously we've had COVID, it's like had such an impact on so many different people. But is there kind of like a future that you want to explore more roles in VO gaming, motion capture? Like what kind of like opportunities you're eyeing up? Is this something that's kind of like whetted your appetite for more work in the video game industry?
Yeah, I love working in the video game industry, definitely. I just worked on a film just before the pandemic that came out on Hulu. That was with Usher, called Bad Hair. And I got to do that, so that was really cool. Working in that and being in that, it was kind of like a horror comedy satire film. So I got to be in that, and that was very exciting. And we got to shoot a short film during the pandemic. We managed to squeeze in a few days to do that. And that's coming out into the film festival later this year. So yeah, definitely I want to do video games, but definitely continue in film and TV as well.
Perfect. And we'll come back to Liquid Snake to wrap this up. Did you go back and play MGS1 after MGS5, or had you played it before MGS5?
I hadn't played it before. My friends had, but I hadn't played it. But I knew of it very well, and so I was very immersed in the story of it all. But no, I hadn't played it, unfortunately.
Obviously, like there's a lot of rumors going online saying that there might be an MGS1 remake in the future. We've got hints about MGS3 remake recently, but there's rumors about an MGS1 remake. Cam Clarke played the character in the original game, but say if like he passed up the opportunity and the baton was passed on to you, would you want to take that role? Would you want to like go head on, make MGS1 remake, play Liquid Snake, complete the circle essentially?
God, it would be cool. It would be very cool. There's all sorts of things. Talk of a movie that they're doing, talk of remakes of video games as well. So there's all sorts of things. I think there's many different directions they can take this franchise. I'm really excited to see what they do with it. But there's a good script. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And with just kind of lingering on that question for a moment, Liquid Snake's obviously quite different in the first Metal Gear Solid compared to Eli. It's, not as strongly British. And then say if I gave you that role and you were casted for the MGS1 remake, God forbid that you're under any NDAs, but like I'm just more in a hypothetical sense. You get casted as Liquid Snake, and would you go back and look at Cam Clarke's performance, for example, or would you go exactly the same route that you did with Eli, like just make it your own character, know that there's a character there, and just put your own stamp on it performance-wise?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of shut out what's gone before, because I think what they're looking for is you to bring something of your own to it. They want to make it different, usually. So I think it's sometimes it's not helpful, you know, if your mind's got other performances in your mind, you know, it's not, you want to try and separate from that and not fall down the trap of trying to copy someone else's performance. You've got to make it your own. So probably I would just not watch it, just to make sure that I could distance myself from that and not copy it.
I respect that completely. And whilst I keep saying this is the last question, it's not going to be, because I'm going to go throw you one more. Got to ask you who you're more a fan of, Venom Snake or Big Boss? Which character would you rather be?
Oh, that's an impossible question for the last one. How am I going to? Oh God,
because obviously we got two different characters, two different voice actors as well. Because Big Boss was heavily David Hayter. Then we had Kiefer Sutherland for Venom Snake specifically. They are technically still big, quote unquote, Big Boss together. But which one are you leaning towards more?
Well, I love both, but I guess I have a soft spot for what Kiefer Sutherland did, I guess. So maybe I would have to go down that route. What about you? I'll throw the question to you.
It's a really different one, because I know that obviously lifelong Metal Gear fan, grew up with David Hayter, and I loved his performance. But obviously what he did with Kiefer Sutherland did with Venom Snake, I was quite a big fan of, and obviously with the story it was going into. And I remember Kojima saying that was a big influence from Breaking Bad and Walter White with the character Big Boss on this one. So it kind of fits in with the darker theme. So I was kind of impressed with what Kiefer Sutherland did, and kind of like when the full story came and emerged, I was like, this is getting even more clever and fitting into the lore of the universe. And I have to, whilst I've got you as well, Kiefer Sutherland, that performance, you watched it, what was going through your mind? Were you like, this is a huge Hollywood star, designated survivor, 24, everything else, and you see him play Big Boss, and you're in the same game with him, your character's interacting, and what was going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, like I said, when I first took on the job, that was one of the first things I knew, that he was going to be doing it. And that was incredibly exciting. I really wanted to be in the game with him. And I knew he would do something great with it, and he did. And I never got to meet him, because, you know, you never really do with in the recording booth. It's very unusual to be in the same place with the other actors. But so I never got to meet him doing it, but I got to see little snippets of it again, and I knew that, yeah, he was going to do something great, and he did.
Absolutely. You both did a great performance, and I'm going to wrap it up here, because I feel like I'm going to take too much of your time otherwise, and we'll be on here for Metal Gear for too long. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment. It really does help my channel. Piers, thank you so much for coming on. Absolutely wonderful to talk to you. And I can't believe I spoke to the person who played Eli as well. Absolute privilege. Stay tuned, guys. I have more content to come. See you later, guys.